जी आप करो।
Good evening
और
and welcome to Getty's Life Talk, hashtag Disruptive Education. I am your host Zainab Molai and today I'll be hosting this talk. So let me tell you something about Getty. Getty is one of the most premium training institutes in India. Getty provides two types of training, one for the teachers who are already in service, pre-service Getty training course, and one for the aspiring teachers, pre-service Getty training course. So, along with this, we also conduct on this live forum, live talks under the banner of Detox by Global Education and Training Institute. We are moving towards disruptive education mission under the broad vision of our founder director, Dr. Sunita Gandhi. We are committed and we are working towards bringing about transformative
बहुत
change
बढ़िया।
in education. Hence, these endeavors. Today, we are pleased to have with us Dr. Mohammad Sajid Ali. He has done his master's in science from Aligarh Muslim University, his B.Ed and LLB from OU, and PhD from Commonwealth University. He established Ikra Mission High School in 1986 as its founder principal and correspondent in a slum area called Nawab Sahib Kunta Jahanuma, Hyderabad. Established Ikra Mission, JR College for Girls in 2013, serving about 2,400 students. 70% are from low income groups. He is passionate about educating low income group community. He is editor EduBunch, monthly magazine for professional development of teachers since 2016. He is member of MESCO and AIMES. He is General Secretary of Association of Minority Educational Institutions. He was National Fellow ISL Indian Schools of Leadership during 2014-15. He is a resource person and activist of National Education Policy 2020 on pros and cons. So, a very warm welcome to you, sir, and looking forward to hear from you on the topic that you will be speaking on. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Zainab, for hosting me, and I welcome audience also uh, to this talk. And as was introduced, my topic today is budget schools, role and challenges. First of all, uh, I would like to talk about the scenario of education, both prehistoric India, or say pre-independent India, and as well as soon after independence. Before independence, the elementary education rather was the domain of charity institutions. Either they were connected with, say, madrasa and maktabs uh, among Muslims, and among Hindus, it was connected with the religious places of worship called Gurukulas and all, and then with Christian missionaries. During the British period, so many Christian missionaries have got established, and throughout the length and breadth of the country, they have established very, even today, they are renowned and being trusted by people for quality education. So, this was the scenario, and it was not the government that time. I mean, Britishers, they were not funding elementary education. They were interested more so in producing graduates because they wanted graduates uh, to run the country in the capacity of, say, administrators, administrative level staff they wanted. So for that reason, they have established Calcutta University, Madras University, Bombay University, and like that. But they have not funded elementary education. Soon after independence, the country thought that it should invest in elementary education because uh, after the independence, Jawaharlal Nehru trusted his lieutenant Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, who was a renowned scholar, and Jawaharlal Nehru mentions that no other person was such capable as of Maulana Azad at that time to be given the portfolio of education, and he remarkably did laid a strong foundation for education as far as both in elementary sector and as well as in university sector. So right now I am not going into detail, but I would mention three major initiatives he has taken during his tenure as first Education Minister of India. First, that democratization of education, because it was the colonial rule and the education system need to be decolonized. So he has put in lot of efforts to make it democratize the education. The second initiative he has taken is universalization of education. The audience may be knowing that at the time
I
of
am sorry to
independence,
interrupt you, Dr. Sajid. I
yes,
am sorry to interrupt you. You
yes.
are just on your first slide. I just want to acknowledge you that you are speaking from your first slide, Dr. Mohammad Sajid Ali, and your introduction is written. Your slides are not flipping.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay,
Back,
no problem. Please go ahead.
back,
Now I can see the slide of
back,
yours, growth of school
back.
enrollment.
Uh,
This is
I'll
again the
go
first
on.
slide.
Is my plus first slide visible even now?
Yes, sir. It is visible.
So what I was saying is that the second initiative he has taken is secularize the universalize the education, because he felt that
Sir, you are on
yes, right.
mute.
Yes. So what I was saying, at the time of freedom we got in 1947, it was just the literacy rate was just 12%. So he felt that the India could progress only if it is educated. I mean, every student gets education. So the second objective or main goal of him as first education minister was to universalize the education, and that concept got realized in the year 2009 and 10, when we made education as a right of every children to get educated. So the third major initiative he has taken is to secularize the education. So this is how the contribution made. And soon after the independence, we invested a lot in public education. And even before the independence, it was more a charity model. Students were never charged for education. And after independence also, our forefathers thought that it should remain in the non in the charitable domain. I mean, it should be free to the children. But what has happened, the government felt that it alone cannot take up this big initiative. So what they did is simultaneously they started giving granting aid to the school also. I mean, on one side, a major part of the education was taken care by the institutions run by the state or government schools or state-run schools, and along with grant in aid schools also existed. So this scenario continued till the year, say, 1980 or so. Then what has happened? Government thought that let us discontinue the practice of giving aid, rather focus only on government funded public schools. So what happened, particularly in the year 1990, came the Operation Blackboard, and the government invested a lot of money. Many times it is said that 11 times it invested in public education. and with this operation blackboard, because our country was facing three major issues. One is the access to education, the second one was the quality of education, and the third issue which we were facing was equity. All sections of the society were not getting attended and all. So after 1990, you see, in last 2 3 decades, a new phenomenon has developed, has come up, and I am talking about that phenomenon. That is the phenomenon of unaided schools. Unaided schools in large number have come up through the length and breadth of the country, and the scenario right now is, if you see, in 1978, government schools were on the top. 74% of the education was being taken care by the government, and by the year 1993 it came down by 4%. If you see 2017, it drastically dropped to 52%. Whereas if you see the private unaided education, which is in blue background, it was in 1978 3.4%, and in 1993 it was 9.2%. But by that time, 2017, you see, it made a very high jump of 34.8%. So this is how a phenomenon has developed, and this phenomenon is can be called as uh, private unaided education taking uh, rather a big role in elementary sector of the education. So as of now, there are about 9 crore children studying in private uneducated institutions in the country, and they are in about 4.5 lakh schools which are being managed by such a big phenomenon. We can call it as the third largest sector overall the world. The first chain of schools or first largest uh, education sector can be said to be in China. The chain of schools run by the state there, and then comes the government schools run by our country, by our Department of Education, which is catering to about 11 crore children with 9 lakh students. But when you come to the third rank overall, the world is now being taken by these private unaided institutions, which are 4.5 lakh, and there are about 9 crore children studying in so this phenomenon is a very significant and need to be taken care of. And the other important thing is that the moment we say private, we consider as if it is for privileged people or for elite people, but it is not the reality. Though there is a percentage of schools for elite, but they are hardly less than 10%. Whereas majority of the students in private schools, say up to 90%, they are being served by the schools which charge 50% of them, which are charging less than 500 per month. So this is the phenomenon which, I mean, the private school for poor, for low, for affordable people. This slide is very important to understand. You can see 45.5% of the families who are sending their children to the private, unaided, or low budget schools. Some of my audience may be wondering what actually the low budget school or budget school. I would simply say that any school which is charging much less than what the government is charging, what the government say incurring on educating a child, it is about say 50 to 60,000 rupees the government spending per child per year. That varies from state to state, but on an average, but you see, out of these private unaided schools, 45% families they pay less than 500. So this is the phenomenon which I wanted to discuss right now. But if you see, 70% families they are paying less than 1,000 rupees, and the school for elite, those who pay on my right, they are 9.4% only. So when you say private schools, private school is not a monolith, or it is not homogeneous. The data in this slide clearly shows that all private schools are not like just the same. There is heterogeneity in terms of the fee they are charging. So this is the big problem of private schools, that all private schools are charged just like the same, or treated just like the same, but in reality they are not. This is what I just said just before, that we have 10.9 lakh government schools wherein 13.1 crore children are studying. If you go down next paragraph, there are about 5 lakh, 4.6 lakh schools, and therein 11.9 crore children are studying. I said I think 9. I would correct myself. It is not 9 crore, but 11.9 crore children are being studied in this. So this is a major phenomenon, major stakeholder in elementary education in our country. This is the growth of private schools, how it has taken the shape. The government schools, as I said earlier, in 1993, they were having a share of 70%, but by 2017, they gone down to 52%. And private schools, they were having a share in the year 1993 just 9.2%, but in 2017, they gone up to 34.8%. So in this way, you can notice the share or the role being played by, in terms of revenue. This was in terms of enrollment. The next aspect is of revenue. I mean, how much revenue this unaided sector is contributing. It is calculated to be 1.74 lakh crore rupees, though it is not there in the slide right now I'm talking. But I would like to mention this revenue share from this budget schools or unaided schools. Without getting any aid, they are running the schools, and their contribution to the GDP, or you say the contribution they are making to the government of India, is, as I said, 1.74 lakh crore rupees. If you take the state of Telangana, where I am working in Hyderabad, 57% of children are now getting educated in private unaided schools. And here in Telangana, government spends around 12,000 crores per annum on elementary education, and you can understand the share by unaided schools is 57, means the revenue share or contribution to the state government by this sector, it could be around 15,000 crore rupees. So the amount shared is not just, I mean, the revenue share, but they are taking care of the children, those who are out of school. Otherwise, they would have become the child laborer and all. I would like to mention one thing here for the sake of clarification. I am not at all saying anything about the government sector of schools. I want them to stay and flourish, because that is the only sector which can take care of, you see, the justify justify catering to the all sections of society, particularly SCs, STs, minorities, Muslims. So there is no alternate to that. I am talking about this sector which can pay something for education. I am talking about the affordable section. So even the affordable section cannot guarantee the equity. Only the government sector can, I mean the government public schools can only guarantee the equity. So they should be flourishing, and we need to be giving attention to them. But my point of saying is that the children studying in unaided educational institutions or also citizens, or say future citizens of this country, they do need as much attention as the child being given attention in the public schools. So now this slide which is in front of us says, one may wonder that these schools are charging so low fee. So what about their learning outcome? Whether they are justifying their job, or simply they are money fleecing or money extracting, or working only for money. This slide is an answer. If you see, because our country is struggling, particularly even before pandemic, we were struggling in learning outcomes. I mean, the schooling was happening, the education was taking place, but the learning was not happening. So learning outcome is the biggest concern of our country. So out of these two learning concerns, one concern is of reading, I mean literacy. The other concern is numeracy. So if you see the in terms of literacy, government schools are performing in 2018 44.2%, whereas these affordable private school or budget schools, they were performing at 65.1%. I mean their performance in terms of reading is far better than. I am not demeaning the public school system. I am not against of them. Once again, I would like to repeat. But what I am saying is that the only intention of my talk is to get the attention of public in general, all stakeholders and all, and we want a recognition from parents, media, government, and everybody, because as of now these figures are not shared much. So now, if you see the numeracy skills again, these affordable private schools are doing far better at charging at low fee. Uh, So this slide says that why actually parents are sending their children to private schools. The reason they say is that 73% of parents they prefer private schools for better learning. Particularly, they like one thing in these affordable schools, that is the environment, mahol, how the environment, because it is the environment which makes a lot of difference. These figures are of UDIs. I think I have already mentioned it, so I will proceed in the interest of time. This also I have shared. In this slide, uh, particularly there are states where the share of private unaided is far more, particularly Goa. It is 83%. Then comes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 states: Tamil Nadu, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, and all, where the government schools, compared to government schools, the private schools are more in number. Then comes my state, Telangana, Karnataka, and all. They are in the range of 46% to 60% elementary education they are covering. Particularly, if you see on left side, two states in our country, West Bengal and Bihar, they are almost taken care by the public schools, I mean the government. So there are about there are 5 states in our country where their stake has surpassed to 50%. Telangana is one among them. This slide is very important to understand the significance or the reason behind parents or families sending their children to private schools. This study says that the blue part, that which is 73.1%, it says that the parents are sending to unaided private schools. The major reason is that they like the environment. They for the for environment they are sending the children. Next comes the because these schools are mostly English medium, they cater to English medium, but their percentage is just 12%. Sometimes my friends in public sector, they say that because private people they teach through English medium, and that is the reason that students are moving to private schools. This data proves it wrong. The major reason for sending the children to unaided school, mostly parents say, is because of environment. So now this is the last part of my talk, and the challenges and some solutions which I'm making here. Uh, as I said during my talk a couple of minutes ago, that this sector is generally, I mean, sector means this private school sector, particularly the budget sector, it is considered as homogeneous one, and that is the reason that the rules are made. My audience may be knowing that till 1976, education, particularly elementary education, was the state subject, but during the emergency it was made in a concurrent list. So even now in elementary education the state share is more, but the states which regulate the schools, which govern the schools and all, they have made the rules uniform for the entire state, uniform for all sections of society, irrespective of their illiteracy rate, irrespective of their dropout rate, irrespective of their demographics. And also biggest problem or challenge of these schools is that the rules are made homogeneous. I mean, the rules which are made for a school which is charging 500 rupees, less than 500 rupees, are just like the same compared with the school which may be charging say 10,000 rupees per month. So this is the problem which we are facing and which need to be taken care of. And the other point I would like to make here, it is that these schools are being are treated as non-profit entity. But you see, there was a time in our country where socialism was on top, particularly during the Congress rule, and even bread, say, oh, you name anything that public sector would prepare, whether medicines, even aircraft and all. Now we are in an era where everything right from pin to plane is being given to the private authorities. Even defense, even the what do you call planes and all being given the responsibility to the non-state players. So what I feel is that uh, these schools should better be treated as for profit entity rather than not non-profit entity, because it is for namesake, but reality is that reality, as I said, is that they need to be reconsidered. This sector need to be reconsidered. Then the last point I would like to make here is that in order to get the permission to run a private school, you need to get licenses from a whole lot of departments, maybe 30 to 40 regulations you need, and that depends from that differs from state to state. So it is a big problem these days. uh, the governments are having single window system for every other sector to promote, but whereas in order to run a school you need in order to get a permission to run a school, and it is being regulated by so many departments. So what we feel is that it should be regulated by just one department, not by so many departments. And so the next and last point I would like to make by ending my presentation, that everybody knows our contribution, our I means the budget sector contribution, and the role being played by them, and the contribution which they are making to the GDP and all, but nobody talks about them, and nobody shares the data about them and all. And there is the reason that because elementary education is the constitutional responsibility of the state, so that's why, though they are allowing, though they are recognizing the individual schools, private schools, but they are not the government is not recognizing this sector as a whole. This image is evident. It is just like elephant in the room situation. Everybody notices the elephant in the room. Elephant here is rather the private schools, their contribution and all, and how good they are having creating access, quality education, equity and all. But in spite of them, nobody wants to talk about this elephant, which is though seen by everyone in the room. So thank you for listening to me. So now over to my host
Thank
for
you so
question and
much,
answer.
Dr. Mohammad Sajid. It was a very interesting and session full of facts and data, really
Thank you.
impressive. And I was making my notes all through the session, jotting down the ratios and the numbers that you have given, and really very impressive the things that you have told, that these budget schools are equivalent to the private schools, but they are charging comparatively very less fees, and around 45% of our population, uh, of the children who are in elementary sector, are enrolled in these schools, but they are never been discussed. The private school, once you hear a private school, you think that it is a school where you have to pay a anonymous amount of fees, like around 10,000 or 15,000 a month, as you said. These schools should be like, as you said, they have their challenges and they have their roles to play in the society, as they are covering a large amount of children who are enrolled in them, and they provide good education to them. So like, my question would be, as I have read through your bio, you are also running a budget school, right, sir? This equa
Yes, yes,
school. So
yes.
your, what are your efforts in this to get some, can't your school get some aid from the government, or you people don't want to take these aids? What is
No, as I said during my talk, that since the year 1980, the government of India has changed the policy. It is no more funding any private school. So
Mhm.
this policy change has happened. So there is no more granting aid. Recently, in the state of Andhra Pradesh, the government even has given an option for closure of these aided schools, and they have suggested either to close down or hand it over to the government, or get into unaided institutions. So this is how the government policy has changed. So there is no aid at all given to these schools in any way. Actually, these schools they don't want direct aid from the government. Only they want that some concessions be given to the schools rather for charging. If suppose these private schools are being charged in a very different, I mean, on a commercial basis, whether it is property tax or electricity bills or water bills or for trade license and all, if because we deserve concession from government, because we are contributing a lot to the GDP, as I said, to the revenue and all. So we want, what we want is that we want to make the education more affordable, more
Yes,
affordable,
sir.
so that large sections of the society get into our school and benefit. But we want some concession in the sense that our property should be exempted from property tax. This is how, because we are making such a big contribution, why can't the government give us the concession, small concessions like this, so
Yes,
that
sir.
the
Like
education is
making a
made
big
more
difference
affordable?
to the society. These
This is my
schools.
point. This is my point. Yeah.
Yes, surely I got your point, and this is a very valid and legit point. And the government will sooner or later listen to this, because these schools are making a big difference for the parents. Because like 70% of our population is still middle class or lower middle class, or I would say lower class, and they want their children to go to the public schools because the environment is good, teachers are good, and they are civilizing the children. I would say they make these children civilized, and to become a good member of the society, they teach them how to behave in a particular situation and in a particular environment. Because in government schools, although those teachers are paid highly, as you said, the government is spending enormous amount on these public schools, and still we don't see any results. You go
Yeah.
anywhere around the country, and like few exceptions are there, like Kerala or maybe some other places where there are government schools and children are learning in those government schools and they are flourishing in their fields. But on a whole, we see that children are reluctant to learn, or whatever may be the reason. uh, Parents are reluctant to send their children. If they are a little bit aware of things, they don't want to send their children to these government schools.
Apart from making a contribution to the revenue, particularly these schools are checking the dropout rate.
Yeah,
Otherwise, these children would have been the child laborers. So they
sure.
are neighborhood schools mostly. So very easily accessible, particularly for girl children.
Yes, sir.
Girls, they find the children right in their gully and muhalla. So for them, it becomes very easily accessible. So these schools
And
are, yeah,
one more
yeah,
thing, that like they charge minimal amount, and the parent feels like liable to send, as they are spending, no matter they are spending a very small amount of 300 or a 200 rupees a month, which is nothing, the education that these schools are providing. But the parents feel responsible to send their children to the school as they are spending. This is this strategy of consumerism that these schools are using to make the person responsible by taking a nominal amount from them, and like making them aware that they are giving the fees, so they have to send their children. Because there are so many first generation learners in these schools every year.
yeah,
As you are in this, like I have many schools around my house, and there's a charitable school near my house. It's a very good school, a English medium school, and they charge hardly any money. They're like 380 rupees a month they charge for their fees,
yeah.
and they are providing quality
And
education.
there is a self accountability, inbuilt
Yeah.
accountability there. In order to survive, the school to is self accountable to the parents immediately. That is the reason that parents prefer. Otherwise, they
Yeah.
can't say anything, suggest anything in government schools. Nobody will take the responsibility there.
No,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
So these things, like either they improve the condition of the government schools, or they provide aid to these budget schools. Like whatever they do, let's like pray. We can only pray, and like we pray that our government get enlightened and they withdraw that bill of theirs.
This
And did they?
this talk is more like an advocacy.
Yeah.
This talk is more like an advocacy, because many people, they don't know all these figures. Even the government people, those who are in departments and all, they are not aware of these facts and figures. It is not circulated in a large on a large scale. It is, so my talk was more like an advocacy. Yeah.
Okay, sir. So anything else would you like to say, sir?
um, because those, if parents are there among the audience, I would say that generally parents they get carried away, because if any news appears in media against the private schools and all, they think that their school is also part of it, or this their school is also same. It is not like the same, because generally the schools for elite, they are run by high profile people. those who charge a very hefty fees and all. Mostly issues parents get with that schools only. So we are wrongly being included in private schools, and we get a lot of what you call media. Our contribution, in spite of our contribution, we are say यानी हमको डिमीन किया जाता है सोसाइटी में. वी आर मनी फ्लीसर्स, मनी एक्सट्रैक्टर्स, और ये लुटेरे हैं, ये इस तरह के ये जो इमेज है. मैं यही चाहूँगा कि मीडिया वाले अगर इसमें मेरी बात सुन रहे हैं, इफ पेरेंट्स आर आल्सो हियर, आई वुड जस्ट, बिकॉज दे आर आल्सो आवर स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं वो, उनको भी समझना चाहिए कि all private schools are not just like the same. Only hardly 9% or 10% schools which are for elite, but mostly rest of the schools are, they are genuinely working for the education. They are by the side of them in order to educate their families. सिर्फ मैं यही अपील करना चाहूँगा. Yes.
Thank you, sir. I hope your appeal goes high up and they do something about it. With this, we come to an end of our session.
Thank
I would like
thank you.
to thank you, sir, and thank my dear audience who have been with us all through the session. My dear audience, you can type your questions in the comment box, and Dr. Saab will come, and Dr. Mohammad Sajid Ali Saab will surely come and answer your questions as and when he gets time. And till then, stay safe and have
Thank
a healthy life. Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Bye bye.
thank you. Thank
Good
you.
night.